And there's, look at the case of
let's talk about Nicholas Schmidl, because you used to work with him.
Let's
talk about Nicholas Schmidl. You used to work with him at the Institute of Strategic Studies.
Yes.
Now
he was
deported immediately by the intelligence agencies and the police themselves. He wasn't, and so what I'm trying to say is that Matthew Rosenberg, if he was a spy, presumably the authorities would have dealt with him, and not a newspaper calling him a spy. And by the way, you mentioned that you're claiming that where he lives perhaps makes him a spy, or insinuates that he is working for a foreign agency. He lives in New Delhi because he's a South Asia correspondent.
That is an assumption that you are drawing. And the unfortunate part of the Pakistani media is that when a Pakistani journalist, Voice of America, goes to the US, he gets arrested for 3 months. I don't see the Pakistani media making much of it. What happens when Ansar Abbasi, a senior investigative journalist, is labeled a Taliban by the New York Times? Did anybody in our media or the American media take up his cause? What happened when Fuad Shah, he's the one who broke the story on Blackwater in Peshawar, had to leave Pakistan because he was under threat from the Americans for breaking the story? He went into hiding, he went to Iran, then he escaped to Armenia. He's only now come back and finally decided that he better go public rather than be killed quietly, which is what may have happened to him. So let's look at the hypocrisy of it all. And this is ridiculous. Basically what the message is being sent to us is, if it's an American citizen, whether he's a journalist or anybody else, he can do what he likes and we should not question what he's doing.
No,
I'm sorry, as a Pakistani, if I feel somebody is doing something wrong,
you're perhaps not understanding the distinction I'm making. If you had printed an article saying this man has broken the law and entered FATA, that's one thing. But to call him a spy when we all know that the Taliban are beheading people, local foreign journalists are being killed every day. 8 journalists in Pakistan were killed last year.
No, so are you trying to tell us that we should accept whatever the Americans do because they may be in danger? Why is he going into areas where he's not supposed to go without permission?
Do you have written evidence of Matthew Rosenberg being a spy or links with CIA,
in the paper, and incidentally, no, we had a question mark on our headline, that is he a spy? Now, if he is, obviously there is some problem there that the guy has, because we had put a question mark, and I suggest that you read the news story. There was a big question mark on it. But look what you have to look at what the journalists are doing in Pakistan, the foreign journalists. I have a whole case list here. Look at Christina Lamb arrived.
You mentioned about representation of all international organizations. Al Jazeera, Al Amsti also signed this letter, which I've actually got in front of me. Al Jazeera's journalists have also been labeled as working for Al Qaeda.
No, the point of the matter is that when Pakistani journalists are abused, nobody takes it up. When an American citizen who breaks the law of the land, we should pardon him because he's a journalist. You are not listening to my point that Americans in Pakistan, especially journalists, have done all sorts of antics, and I'm trying to tell you, but you don't want to listen. Christina Lamb arrived, she was deported because she booked a flight in the name of Osama bin Laden. 2 French journalists, is this honest? They come and they hire somebody to pose as Taliban just to get the story that they want. Did anybody say anything? No. In July 2009, which is earlier this year, a group of Americans with diplomatic passports are caught. There are cases of US journalists.
This is called investigative journalism. Trying to book a flight as Osama bin Laden does not make you a spy. It makes you an investigative journalist, Shirin.
Come on. This is absurdity. US journalists all over the world, there have been incidents where they have done things which are against the law, and we should forgive them because they happen to be journalists. This is absolutely ridiculous. What about the journalists who were caught entering North Korea? Washington said it's abduction, but they weren't.
Let's get back to this story and Pakistan. Now, it's not just international journalists who travel to FATA or the tribal areas. There are Pakistani journalists who work for your newspaper who will be traveling in that area.
Are we questioning them? But if a foreigner breaks the law, does strange activities, then I think we do have a right to question, especially if it's a war zone.
But you're insinuating that anyone with a foreign accent who looks foreign might be a spy. That includes me then?
No, that is not what we are saying at all. And you know very well that's not what we are saying. But if
I've read that article several times, and that's exactly what I am.
Yes, and
incidentally, every editor from every major news channel or newspaper in the world thinks. So perhaps we're all on the same page and you're not.
The world does not comprise of Britain and America and maybe 1 or 2 Al Jazeera journalists. The world is a larger place. And in that letter of a group of 15, there are precisely 2 or 3 out of, there's 2 French, one is Agence AFP and one is some radio thing, and there are Britishers and Americans. So let's not say the world. Let's not get carried away. Please, let's keep our facts straight. And if you had read our story, how did you miss the question mark? But we do have a right to question, and we do have a right to ask. I mean, this is ridiculous that we dare not question any American, including an American journalist, or what he must be doing in an area that is this war area where they should obey the laws. If they obey the laws, they will be protected. They should obey the laws. Why should this gentleman be above the law?
Okay, but as an editor of a newspaper, surely you should be more responsible in protecting the lives of journalists.
I'm extremely responsible. I think Mr. Rosenberg and his newspapers behaved not only irresponsibly, they have abused the law of the land and the hospitality of the land. And I think we should consider that. In our enthusiasm to justify everything American, we forget that. And we are not allowed that leeway in other countries. Our journalist, he enters, he's arrested. For what? Nobody knows. Our journalist has to run away from his own country because he reveals the Blackwater story. Ansar Abbasi is labeled a Taliban in the New York Times. Why did Dawn not do a program on that? You see, there is a hypocrisy and a duality of standards that unfortunately we are exercising on ourselves, which I don't think is acceptable.
Okay, but not everyone wants to come on Dawn News and talk about things. We appreciate you coming on. Stay with us, Shirin Mazari. We're going to take a very quick break here on Newseye, but more to come with Shirin Mazari, and we'll be speaking to the International Federation of Journalists right after this short break. Don't go anywhere.